Federal IT leaders are under mounting pressure to meet a suite of mandated zero trust cybersecurity standards and objectives by this coming September. One of the key pillars of that effort focuses on protecting their agency's networks. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and here to talk about how AI-driven network technology can help agencies meet some of these zero trust mandates is Jon Green, Chief Technology and Security Officer for HPE Aruba Networking. Jon, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, happy to be here. Thank you.
So, I think it's interesting, with all the recent focus on AI and its ability to streamline and augment work, what we haven't heard much about is AI's role in supporting networking operations. Can you talk a little bit about what's happening with AI in networking these days?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the hype around AI, especially in the last year, has been around generative AI, right? And so people kind of have lost sight of other types of AI that are out there, but that they're still at work and still under development and that sort of thing. So one of the big areas of something that AI is really good at, especially machine learning, is picking out small signals within large data sets. And kind of two trends have taken place. One is the move towards cloud-hosted network management solutions. And this is something that has been happening in the commercial world for a long time. It's been slower to take off in the federal world, largely because of things like FedRAMP accreditation and some of the security requirements around it. But when you do that, when you start to combine data sets of multiple customers into a cloud-hosted system, it allows things like AI to be unlocked so that you can actually start getting insights about things. And so a really simple example of that might be if you're seeing performance challenges in an enterprise network, an AI model might be able to look at that and say, well, your configuration differs from 90% of our other customers in this one small parameter, and that's related to the type of performance problem that you might be seeing. Here's a suggestion, try changing this parameter and see if that brings you back in line with performance of other types. That's something that was difficult to do when you had kind of isolated islands of network management in the past, where when you move to kind of cloud managed systems, you can do that. So that's a big advantage, and it's a big change in kind of the federal world.
That's a great example. And I know, there's a growing discipline around AI ops. And I'm curious, what's new in AI ops, particularly over the last year or so as AI's gained momentum and that federal IT leaders should be aware of?
Yeah, certainly the generative AI, the large language models have made a difference there, just in terms of allowing people to ask questions or to gather insights using natural language processing. We've had natural language processing for a long time, but the LLMs really changed that world quite a bit, of making things more conversational and making the responses be more relevant. So as an example, we've trained through an LLM all of our user documentation for network operations, and then kind of said, okay, LLM, tell us the 500,000 most common questions that someone might ask to us on the basis of this documentation that we've given to you, and then pre-program that into kind of a smaller LLM model that doesn't use an OpenAI or something like that. And that is going to really change kind of the game for how network administrators can ask those sorts of questions. So why is my network behaving in this way? What's causing this performance problem for this user? What would be the effect of changing this setting? These are all sorts of things that the LLMs really unlock, and that's really new within the past year or so. We haven't had that access to that in the past.
Interesting distinction. And then I'm kind of curious, you mentioned the cloud earlier. Are you seeing much of a difference between AI ops operating in the cloud versus operating on premises?
Yes and no. The challenge with the cloud is always security, right? Because for federal agencies, primarily FedRAMP comes up, and FedRAMP largely limits, in some cases, feature sets and things like that, because we're not allowed to use certain capabilities within that environment. And so that's been a bit of a challenge. But there is, we've come out strongly and said not everybody's going to do cloud managed networks, especially in federal government, especially in high security environments, and a lot of our customers are in that space. And so we've said we're going to give you the ability to run network management from the cloud, but we're also going to let you run that on premises, and it's going to be the same software, but we have the ability to kind of scale that and to migrate that over. What the on-premise management doesn't give you is the massive data sets that for kind of live machine learning and training of being able to aggregate multiple customers' data together into one kind of model. However, when we do AI training, in a lot of cases, the resulting model is something that does become portable, and you can drop that into local network management solutions. And so that's kind of what we're working towards right now, is saying, well, we'll train it in the cloud, but then we'll pick up the resulting model and allow a customer to more or less download that, drop it into a local on-premise solution, and operate in more or less a disconnected environment. So I'd say it's changing right now, and there's a lot of evolution happening in that space.
Interesting. And then bringing the conversation back to zero trust and the networking component of zero trust, what is HPE Aruba's vision for the evolution of AI in network management? And what should agency leaders, again, keep in mind as they transition from their legacy systems to more of a holistic zero trust environment?
I think two things to keep in mind. Zero trust, it really by itself doesn't make sense. Zero trust networking was the original term that people talked about, and it basically means just because you have a presence, a connection to a particular network, you don't get special access rights, you don't get access to services, just by that very nature. And you need to look at that from two perspectives. One is an application perspective, and that might be a web application, it might be a legacy, SAP old version type thing, it might be printing. That's one form of zero trust networking, and that's kind of the popular conception of what that's all about. The network itself is another layer of that. And so what we would say is use application focused zero trust technologies wherever you can, but for everything else, the network still provides a powerful layer, and particularly in things like IoT, the Internet of Things, devices on the network that don't necessarily have users behind it. Think about a printer, for example. We may not be able to apply kind of a full application-focused zero trust framework to a printer, but the network can provide a lot of capabilities there of saying, hey, that device connected over there on port 13 is a printer. It behaves like a printer. It identifies itself as a printer. Let's make sure that the only thing that it can do on the network is printing activities, and it can't, start sending botnet traffic. It can't be port scanning the network and these sorts of things. And so those two things together, I think, give you a more complete view of what zero trust is all about. I think in the federal world, there's some good frameworks out there. I think the DoD zero trust framework is actually overcomplicating things, to be honest. It's mixing in kind of what you should have for a complete security program with the word zero trust. And people are saying, well, which part of this is actually new and which part is really zero trust, and which part is kind of what's always been best practice for security. So I would say for IT leaders and security leaders, the biggest thing to look at first is identity. Are you able to apply identity to your users? You should be able to if you're following all the federal mandates around that, but also to your devices. Do you have a way to identify if there's a device connected to your network? Do you know what it is? Do you know where it is on the network at any given time? That's the foundation for all of this. The next phase of that is, how can I apply that identity? Do I have applications that can accept identity and perform kind of an authentication process and also an authorization process? And if you don't, there's a good framework called ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Access, that is kind of the next best thing. It's saying, well, my applications, I'm going to leave them alone, but I'm going to wrap this layer around it that will provide me with that authentication and continuous authorization. That's not been done a lot in the federal world yet, but I think that's coming next.
And then lastly, one other development we'd be remiss in not addressing when it comes to networking is the evolution of 5G, particularly in the federal space. And, a few years ago, I think it's safe to say it seemed that there was a whole chorus of people that thought, 5G would maybe replace Wi-Fi, but we don't hear that much anymore. If anything, we hear kind of the combination of the two, but they obviously complicate the network environment. What happened there in that discussion, and how is the evolution of 5G now impacting the way agencies should really be thinking about network modernization?
Yeah, I think what happened there is people went and got cost estimates and figured out what all of this was going to actually cost them to do. We are strong believers in 5G, but there's particular use cases for it. One is, large outdoor areas where the power limits that 5G supports really start to make sense. So in the DoD world, for example, these large training grounds that you may want to put cameras up, for example, you can do that a lot more efficiently with 5G technology. The second is kind of indoor environments where you have really high-speed roaming. And an example might be a distribution center where you've got robots running around and they're moving really quick down the hall. 5G is much more deterministic in how it does handover between base stations. And then the last one is really deterministic load and performance of the network under heavy load. And Wi-Fi starts to break down at that point because it's contention based, where 5G is much more, it allows you to do things like time slicing. And so those are the areas where we really see strong use case for 5G. The other one is just, in building, I want my cell phone to work when I'm inside of a building. And increasingly you find, low emission glass on the outside of buildings, and signals don't penetrate very well. And so people get poor performance when they're inside. Wi-Fi calling has helped that a lot. It allows basically a mobile phone to still kind of function when it's in that environment, as long as it has Wi-Fi connectivity. But some people have said, well, I want to bring the 5G that a carrier provides and bring it inside my facilities. That's where it starts to get really expensive. And so we're working on solutions for that to offer things like neutral host capability, where you can say, hey, I'm going to deploy enterprise controlled and managed 5G equipment, but I'm going to allow the public carriers to come in and use that spectrum and that bandwidth, while I also connect my own devices in my own particular way. So it really is what you said. It's a combination of both, and picking the right use cases for where each technology is appropriately. But yeah, it's not a Wi-Fi will win out over 5G or the other way around. They're solving kind of different use cases there and so we can help people figure that out.
I appreciate your unpacking that. And very clearly, the combination of the two is certainly timely, given the additional amount of data that's coming on stream with AI and the ability to make decisions faster. So it's really an interesting time to be watching the evolution of all this. So, well, Jon Green, thank you for taking a few minutes to join us and share your kind of perspective and insights about today's AI-driven network technology world. So appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely, anytime.